Okay, and we're going to start obviously with the first few chapters. So chapter 1 to 4 in the actual textbook is all theory. It's looking at background information regarding strategy, how to create it, Porter's 5 forces, all of that. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the information here in this particular book. Okay, principles of strategy, risk, and financial management techniques. We're obviously looking at the first one. Okay, the 0001 for this particular module. Okay, obviously we've looked at, I've mentioned this, there are 28 chapters in the first book. You've got the first 2 parts. Okay, so obviously part 1 is looking at strategic planning and strategy, and then they break it up into different sections. Then you've got part 2, which is the introduction to the finance. Okay, so there's a little bit of calculations there, time value of money, looking at principles around how to calculate or budget. There's quite a few calculations in terms of ratios and analysis, and we'll look at all of that. That would be topic 2, part 2. Part 2, then you've got topic 2, topic 3, and then you've got a breakdown of the next study guide, which is study guide 2. So the first book obviously covers the first 14 study units, and then we've got another 14 study units in the second book, totaling 28. Okay, so there's a lot of theory, lots and lots and lots of theory, with some calculations scattered throughout the different sections. Okay, that's just to give some scope to the actual course. Right, so this week I'm going to try cover the first 4. It might seem a lot, but it's actually not that much. You'll see the theory is quite limited, and it focuses primarily on strategy. Okay, the first 4 study units are covering the first 30 pages, well, 40 pages, up until the summary. So that's what I'm going to be looking at this week. So what I would suggest you do is, obviously, if you've got more time, to go through the material yourself as well. So to read over the material, either do it before or after the classes, it doesn't matter, it's up to you. You can obviously use the videos at a later stage if you need to revisit anything. The calculations are probably more important because that needs practice. Okay, so you need to actually practice calculating certain amounts, substituting the amounts into the calculator. Question, Unam, do you have a financial calculator?
Yes, I still have the same one that we were using, I think in financial math. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got just remind me, what brand is it? Is it the HP or the Sharp?
It's the HP.
It's the HP, okay, great. Okay, so at least I know which calculator you're using. So when we do calculations, I'll obviously do the workings with the HP calculator in mind. Okay, so let's start off with the first bit. You're obviously looking at introduction and overview. We just painted the scope. There's 28 modules we need to get through. When focusing on strategy, risk, and financial management, it's looking internal. So the reason why this is called MAC, okay, MAC is for management accounting. Okay, that's like the area that you're looking at. Management accounting is very detailed. MANAC, okay, management accounting. It's detailed because we need to make decisions based on the business's operations. So everything that you cover here is applicable to a business in terms of its decision making. So accounting is obviously a way to create information in order to make decisions. So that's what the accountants do. They create the financial statements, and then decision makers are going to be using them in order to, let's say, decide on which product is selling, or they might decide, well, should we expand in a different area, okay, or a different country, or what products are we going to stop producing, what products are we going to start producing. So there's a lot that goes into managing a business, okay, and obviously the bigger the business, the more complex it gets, but the basic principles stay the same. So that's what I've seen in this module, is they focus mainly on principles. So they're literally giving you all the different skills or tools and knowledge and information that you need in order to apply in different areas. Okay, so if we're making a financial decision, then we need to know what those tools are. If we're looking at determining and, let's say, mitigating risk, then we need to know what the tools are there. Then you've obviously got strategy, and that's looking at planning, that's looking at the goal. Okay, what is the ultimate goal? What are we wanting to try achieve? That's something to consider. And that's what the first 4 study units are looking at. So I'm going to quickly move down to this, which is the study unit number 1, and start off by discussing this bit. Okay, so we're looking at strategic planning. Okay, strategy. Let's start off by defining it. So I want to ask you, what do you think strategy is? When you hear the word strategy, what are you thinking of?
When I think of the word strategy, I think of it's almost like a plan of how are we going to tackle specific how do I say, like specific goals that we might have in a business. So I want to say perhaps perhaps even, let's say, the direction in which we're going to take to get to those goals. So I think that it's got a big how question. How will we do it? To me, though, that's how I take it.
Okay, great. So you're looking at strategy as the how. So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Is the strategy the how, or is it more the plan? Because how, remember, there's different ways of getting to where you want to get, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always require the same strategy. For example, two people can do two different things and end up in the same place.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what happened this weekend? Massive sporting event.
It was Mayweather and what's this guy, Conor McGregor's fight.
Correct. Okay, huge global event. Right, I'm sure millions of people around the world were watching that particular fight. Okay, it was obviously a boxing match. Okay, that took place in Las Vegas, and obviously you've got two different types of fighters. Okay, you've got an MMA guy. Okay, and then you've got a professional boxer. But obviously Floyd Mayweather is undefeated, 49-0 going into the fight, and obviously he won, and he's now 50-0 in terms of never having lost a fight. He's probably the best boxer of all time. Right, he's never lost a fight, and he's 50-0 in terms of win. Okay, so how would you describe this strategy? Did Mayweather talk about his strategy in the post-match conference?
I didn't quite follow the post-match conference, the post-match details, but from my experience and even the last time that he fought with Pacquiao, everybody was talking about how I suppose his strategy is always a defensive strategy to always be to defend and hold his opponent until a specific point in the game or in the match, okay, and then turn it from there.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So yeah, that's a good answer. So obviously you've discussed the Pacquiao fight when Mayweather fought him, and obviously he went into that fight with a specific strategy. The same thing happened with McGregor. He actually spoke about how McGregor was going to come hard at him in the first 3 rounds, because obviously he's an MMA fighter, MMA, mixed martial arts fighter. So he's all aggressive and like getting into your face, trying to take you out in the first few rounds. But Mayweather can withstand that like onslaught. So his strategy was actually to like absorb the pressure at the beginning, and then wear the guy out, going for body shots and all of that, and then in the later rounds of the match, then starting to like attack and capitalize. And if you actually see McGregor in the later rounds, you can see how exhausted that guy is toward the end of the fight, where it almost looks like he's going to collapse. This guy looks so tired, and Floyd is like, he looks fresh and he's still attacking. So the thing is, he's actually a smart fighter. He's a clever fighter. He's not just going in, just swinging arms and fists and all of that to try knock the guy out. He's actually thinking about his opponent, and he's almost like sizing the opponent up. So the reason why I'm discussing the fight is because you could probably say that Mayweather has a lot more experience in the boxing ring. Okay, he's obviously 49-0 for a reason. No one wins 49 and has absolutely no losses if they don't have a good strategy or if they aren't brilliant at what they do. So that's the whole point of this discussion is, when focusing on strategy, every opponent is different, but if you can adapt and you can, let's say, discover what the weaknesses are and maybe what the strengths are, you can then overcome those obstacles. And that's what we're trying to do in management accounting. is because nothing is for certain. No one knows what's going to happen in the future. There could be a recession. Maybe another bank is going to go bankrupt. Okay, we had Lehman Brothers going bankrupt in 2008. The same thing can happen now. Okay, who knows? No one knows. But if we have a specific strategy, then we're going to react and we're going to plan accordingly. So Mayweather doesn't fight each fighter the same. Okay, obviously every fight's a little bit different. Every opponent is a little bit different. But he's adapted his game plan or his game plan. And that actually what helps him win is because he's a clever fighter. And that probably makes him unique and special in a way that he has that experience. And obviously he's from a family of boxers. Okay, so obviously his dad was a boxer as well. He's obviously Mayweather Jr., but he has that ability to adapt. And that's basically what strategy is. Strategy is looking more at the long term. So keeping the long term in mind. Long term goal / objective in mind. Okay, that's strategy. Strategy is looking long term. It's not really looking at the how. Because remember, the how is looking at, well, how am I going to do it? Okay, am I going to go for a jab or am I going to go for a right hook? Am I going to go for an uppercut? What am I going to do to knock this guy out? Okay, that's more the how. But the strategy is, well, what do I want to do? I want to win. So if I'm going to win, what do I need to do? Well, I need to think long term. Okay, if Mayweather went in as aggressive, he probably wouldn't have won the fight because he might have got caught by one of those aggressive, let's say, first 3-round attacks that McGregor was trying to force onto him, and the outcome might not have been the same. Okay, if he was, let's say, as aggressive in the initial stages. So it's quite interesting. So when Mayweather was interviewed post-match, he spoke a lot about that. He spoke about how he was going to wear the guy out and then take the win in the later rounds. And he spoke about how he was going to absorb the punches and the attack in the first 3, 4, 5 rounds, and then after that capitalize. So that he really had that game plan. That was actually something he spoke about in the press conference, and he mentioned that obviously he gets coaching as well, and that was the game plan. So they went into the fight with a game plan. Obviously, McGregor, you could say, maybe had a game plan, but maybe didn't execute it as well. Okay, so it's difficult to say, how can I put it? The strategy, it's difficult to say which strategy is the best. Okay, maybe a different strategy might have won or lost the fight, but it's always something to consider. So the strategy needs to be focused on long term. It's always something that you're wanting to achieve. Okay, what is the end goal? What does the company want to achieve? Okay, later on you'll see they talk about the primary goal of the business and what the business needs to do long term. Okay, I just want to discuss it now because it's important. Value. Okay, businesses need to maximize value over profit. If they maximize value over profit, then they should become profitable over the long run. Okay, that's what we're looking at here in terms of financial management and management accounting. Okay, we're looking at the ability for the firm to maximize value. It's always going to be looking at value. And that's why when you do certain calculations, time value of money, when you look at net present value, and when you do ratio calculations and so on, it's always going to be looking at this, the value part of it. Okay, how much does the company stand to gain from a specific project or investment versus how much is it going to cost? Right, and that's something called risk versus reward. Okay, that's probably the most important underlying principle that embodies all the decision making when businesses need to decide on what are we going to do. Okay, are we going to go with this project or that project? Something to consider. So coming back to the notes here, you'll see they break study guide 1 and 2 into different parts. Number 1 is looking at strategy, okay, strategic planning. 2 is looking at introduction. Okay, this is more like your calculations. 3 is looking at the funding. Right, so where do we get the finance? Okay, and then number 4 is the risk management. So if I had to summarize this, number 1 would be looking at like the vision, okay, or the goal. What is it that we need to achieve? What is the strategy? What is this company wanting to do? Does this company want to be the biggest company in the world in terms of making the biggest profit? Or does this company want to be renowned for giving the most to its, let's say, customers? Okay, so not chasing profit, but maybe looking at making a difference. Okay, there's always two things that we need to look at. The company's strategy in terms of what do they want to achieve financially, or what do they want to achieve in terms of legacy. Okay, so what is this company going to be remembered for? Okay, what is this individual going to be remembered for? Right, and then you've got part two, which is looking at more the, I like to call it tools, okay, or techniques. Okay, obviously tools and techniques is the how-to. Right, so how am I going to measure time value of money in terms of present value, future value, etc. Okay, I'm glad you've done DSC before, because if you've done DSC, you've actually done 1630, which is the most difficult financial calculation module there is in the UNISA, let's say, choice of subjects. So that gives you a bit of an advantage, because when I talk about like time value of money, present value, future value, annuities, all of that, you have that background, you have that knowledge. Okay, so you'll probably find some of the later sections very easy. For example, chapter 3 will be a piece of cake because you've done DSC 1630. If you haven't, for those students that haven't, it's obviously more challenging because they're seeing those concepts for the first time. 3 is looking at the finance. Okay, so where do I get finance? Where do I invest funds? It's going to be looking at a bit of the decision making. Okay, so now where we actually take some action. Okay, what are we actually going to do? So 1 is, well, what do we want to achieve? 2 is giving us the tools and techniques to hopefully achieve something, to do something. 3 is, well, let's take our resources and let's make a decision. Okay, are we going to do this or do that? And then the last part is, well, how do we manage the risk? Okay, because are you going to want to invest all your resources in a very high risk project? What do you think? Is that a good idea?
Well, I don't think so, but then I think they would probably look at the return as well.
Okay, that's a good answer. So you're saying that it depends on the return. And also, it would actually depend on this, the goal or the vision. Okay, so what is your goal? Are you looking to invest long-term or short-term? If you're investing more long-term, well then taking more risk isn't going to be too much of a problem if you're investing for, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years. But if I'm only going to be investing over the short term, then we need to be more careful, because now certain things are more risky than others. And that's the last bit, is the risk management. Okay, so obviously have a goal, have a vision. Then have the tools and techniques to do something. Okay. Then number 3 is, well, use your resources, either invest those resources or manage those resources in order to create value, and then take a decision. Where am I going to invest this capital? And then the last step is, now how do we manage the risk? Okay, so now if I'm investing in this capital, so for example, if I'm buying a car, okay, that vehicle needs to be insured. Okay, that's risk management. Risk management is insuring the vehicle. Okay, managing and investing funds would be buying the vehicle, okay, or buying the property. Okay, if I buy a property, same thing. Right, the property might be damaged, it might be burgled. Okay, so there might be a robbery or something like that, and the property will obviously lose value perhaps. So that's risk management. Okay, maybe security. Let's put in some burglar bars. Let's put in some cameras, fingerprint recognition, etc. Okay, so that's pretty much what you're looking at here. You're going to be looking at different sections, but I always want you to remember what the focus is. Okay, the focus is always on trying to achieve some goal or trying to achieve an objective. Okay, and obviously in finance, the key objective is this: maximizing value. Okay, and we maximize value by investing. Okay, by starting new projects, by buying new products, okay, to sell, or by making new products to sell, depending on what the actual business is doing, okay, in terms of operations. Okay, so that's scope. Then they give you a little bit over here, looking at study unit 1. Okay, we'll obviously go through study unit 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the first bit is looking at this: development of the organization's strategy. Okay, so what are we focusing on here? What do you think?
I think it's the same thing. Like I want to say leading to. I think the components lead to the strategy. So things that we need to know. I got a chance to read through. So it's got things like vision in there. So like I said, things that are leading towards or things that encompass the strategy, or things that support the strategy at the end of the day.
That's perfect. That's a brilliant answer. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you had a chance to go through this ahead of time. It does help quite a bit, because at least then you're familiar with some of the, let's say, ideas that are being expressed in each of the chapters. Okay, so definitely I agree with what you mentioned. It's like the background information. Okay, it's the underlining stuff. It's the underlying, let's say, reasons. Okay, it's looking at the behind the scenes type of thing. Okay, so why are we doing what are we doing? That's the key. Okay, so the first bit, as you said, is looking at like that vision. Okay, that goal, that objective. So you'll see they talk about concepts. Okay, defining concepts. Why do you think a company needs to define concepts? What is its purpose?
Defining concepts. Oh wow! I think it's to make sure that the company knows what they're doing and what their goal at the end of the day is.
Why?
I think it also because it actually helps I believe that it will probably help in being able to allocate costs correctly.
Okay, possibly. But think about this: who runs the company?
The CEOs.
Okay, so board of directors, CEO, fine. Okay, so they're the main like decision maker in the business. But ultimately, companies are run by who?
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders are people.
So management,
stakeholders,
staff. Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. So if you're looking at people and stakeholders, do you agree? Are people always going to have the same values or the same morals?
No, they won't.
Okay, so you've covered the ethics module. That's CAS 1501, I think it is. So you know what ethics are in terms of doing the right thing. Okay, you know what should be done and you know what shouldn't be done. And obviously, different people can have different, let's say, philosophies. Okay, so are we going to do things for the greater good, or are we going to do things because it's right? Okay, so for example, is killing a murderer right? Well, maybe if we're looking at protecting other people versus is killing right or wrong. Okay, obviously killing period is wrong. Okay, we shouldn't be murdering and killing people. But if we're murdering and killing a murderer, does that make it right? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes.
Okay,
sir.
so the key here is defining concepts. Why must a company do that? It's because everybody needs to be on the same page. Okay, all the stakeholders within the business need to know what is this company, like what does the company stand for? That's basically what you're trying to uncover. Okay, so when I talk about these big companies in the world, can you think of an example? What big company can you give me as an example?
Microsoft.
Microsoft. Okay, so if we're talking about Microsoft, how would you describe its, let's say, its reason for existing?
I believe perhaps they're trying to not just be the leader, but to the leader in tech support and tech. Computer solutions. I think they want to be the leader in that.
Okay, so definitely they want to be a leader in that particular industry.
In software, sorry.
Software, yeah.
Yes,
okay, so would you say they've got a specific, let's say, value system or culture?
I believe so. They should have.
Yeah, they should. I think it should come from where? It should come from a mission statement, and the mission statement is basically going to outline that vision. Okay, so a mission statement would be taking a goal and like defining it. Okay, what is the actual goal? Right, so it's interesting that you mentioned Microsoft. I don't know what their vision is, but we can check. Let's just type in Microsoft mission statement, and let's see what we get. Okay, so here's the mission statement, December 30th, 2016. At Microsoft, our mission is to enable people and businesses throughout the world to realize their full potential. We consider our mission statement a commitment to our customers. Okay, that is quoted from December 30, 2016. Okay, what is Microsoft's vision? Okay, Microsoft or Vision is a okay. That's the software that doesn't help us. And about Microsoft. Okay, here maybe this might be better to look at. Okay, so we believe in what people make possible. Our mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. Right, so have a look at that mission statement. Here's it. We believe in what people make possible. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Does the word technology appear anywhere there?
No, not at all.
Not at all. But now, how can a technology company have a vision like that?
I think their main focus is on people. So I think, in my opinion, every business model or every good business model caters for the user and the person. So it's creating an experience around your brand or your product rather than to focus, specifically on the product. So I like to say to like some of my friends that you could have the best product in terms of quality, but if your customer doesn't experience or doesn't have a good memory or good experience with your brand or your product,
True.
The chances of them coming back are a lot less.
Correct. You're right. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people and what their view is on that brand. Okay, so Microsoft obviously does a lot of different things. Do you agree? It's not only software.
Yes.
Okay, I mean they've started making their own devices as well. I mean you've got special Windows phones and all sorts of tech that's making people's lives easier, right?
They even purchased Nokia, if I'm not mistaken.
But Nokia actually, they're bringing out new Nokia phones that are actually branded separate to the Windows phones. Yeah, it used to be Nokia Windows, and it used to be part of the... Well, I think Nokia phones had the Windows operating system on it.
Yes.
Yeah, but now the newer phones... I've seen quite a few adverts about Nokia more recently than I have in the past. So I think they've probably tried to relaunch that company or that brand. But yeah, it's interesting. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the vision. So do you agree Microsoft's vision isn't to make profits?
Yes.
Okay, Microsoft's vision is actually more than that. It's believing in what people make possible. Okay, so they're focusing on the individual, okay, the person. And they know that people have potential. But it's technology that helps people to become successful or to become more. Okay, that's what they're trying to do. Achieve more. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That's what we're looking at. So you can only achieve so much, okay, with the things that you've got. With Microsoft, with their software, with their technology, with X, Y, and Z, you're going to be able to achieve more just because you've got their product or you've got their software or you've got their whatever the case might be. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay, so that's why when looking at defining concepts, the reason why that's important is because companies need to have an underlining, let's say, purpose. Okay, that's the best way I can put it, is purpose. Right, finding the company's purpose. What is the company supposed to be doing? What is the objective? What is the vision? What is the values? What is the philosophy? All of that. Okay, it all comes down to this. What is it that the company is standing for and what is it that the company is going to do? Okay, so that's what Microsoft's purpose is. Microsoft has defined their purpose as trying to help people to achieve more. Okay, that's basically what they're trying to do. So you'll see in the introduction, they talk about concepts here. They talk about the mission. They talk about the values. Okay, do you think the mission and the values are going to affect our strategy?
Yes, I think so.
Definitely. Right, how will it affect the strategy?
Excuse me. I think if everybody knows, if everyone's on like the same page as to what we're trying to do and what how do I put it? If we as an organization are on the same page about what to do, I think or how to do it or what to do, we're able to be able to have a better goal or better game plan at the end of the day. So I think the mission and the core values, they certainly will, at the end of the day, affect the strategic objectives.
Okay, that's good. So give me an example of, let's say, a person's value and what their strategy would be.
So what, like a personal value?
Okay, let me do this. I think let's relate this to your company. Okay, so you're obviously a photographer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to know, what is your vision? What is your mission?
I don't have any of those things, but my vision, of course, is to be the best photographer out there, and to provide quality products.
So now,
yes.
What does that involve? Because everyone wants to be the best.
Yes, sir.
So now you need to define that. See, what are the values? What makes the best photographer?
Good quality product.
Okay, so core value would be quality product.
Yes.
What else? What else would you value? So you would value quality. What else would you value?
A good customer-client relationship.
Okay,
and
so
also
CRM, customer relationship management.
Yes.
What else?
And then also having a quality product at reasonable prices.
Okay, so pricing, affordability. So how can we talk about maybe costs or pricing, maybe cost pricing? Okay. What else? What else would you value? What makes the best photographer?
Just knowing what to do at the right time. I think also planning goals is very important in what I do. So coming prepared for specific shoots, knowing what to use for specific kind of shots that you might need.
Okay.
Yeah. So from camera to lenses to lights,
yes,
to setting and so on and so forth.
Okay, so those are values. So those are all values that you would have to embody, okay, to be the best photographer. In terms of the mission, though, what does photography actually do for people?
Well, it creates memories for them.
It captures memories, captures time.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously we can never ever get the same moment again. But the only thing that we can do is like preserve that moment in time by taking a photo or by taking a video. And that actually captures memories. So as a photographer, maybe your mission would be to capture people's lives or to capture different people's best moments in time, or to capture happiness in a moment, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a mission that goes beyond just offering quality, offering affordable pricing, offering good customer service, good client management, offering planning and professional. There has to be more than that. So the mission would be like that one core purpose. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What is the purpose? That's why when we looked at Microsoft, their purpose was just to do what? Help people achieve more. Okay, obviously they worded it a bit longer and they added a few other words and things like that into the actual mission statement, but
So
at the end of it, they're just looking at purpose. What are they trying to do? So as a photographer, what are you trying to do? Capture good pictures. You're trying to...
yeah, creating everlasting memories.
There we go. That's perfect. So that could be the mission. The mission could be create everlasting memories, okay, or capturing everlasting memories, or capturing moments in time, or something like that. Okay, do you agree?
Yes.
The strategy will then be linked to that mission, okay, or to that value. Right, so if let's assume that your mission wasn't to capture moments in time, and your mission was to make a profit. Okay? If that was the mission. In terms of strategy, what do you think you're going to be doing as an individual?
If you're trying to make a profit only,
Yes.
I think you would be trying to cut your costs and make sure that you preserve any of your profit that you make. So
Okay.
you'd probably actually find that you have you'd probably have higher costs or a higher, there's a word that I'm trying to look for. Your quotation would probably have a lot more costs involved, and a lot, or perhaps the client would be paying more for your product, as opposed to you delivering as much as you can to fit. So as much as your service is maybe 10,000 Rand per hour, but your work is not worth that same amount because you're just trying to make a profit. You're just trying to, I don't know, yes.
Okay,
Trying to, I don't know, I want to say take people's money.
Your actions are going to be very different than if your purpose was more noble.
Yes.
Agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with making a profit as long as it's ethical. Okay, you're not breaking any rules or laws or anything like that. You're not harming people in doing what you're doing, but you're making a profit. Okay, but if you're just making a profit but off the back of people, meaning unethical, meaning let's harm people, okay, in order to make a profit, then there's obviously a problem there with the mission and the purpose. Okay, because remember, strategic objective, right? Your objectives are going to be based on what you believe in. Okay, so if you just believe in profit, okay, there's nothing going to stop you from, let's say, doing something bad in order to make a profit. Okay, so fraud and corruption. Okay, you covered that in CAS. Okay, the ethics unit. Okay, so certain individuals may profit unethically, okay, because of fraud and corruption, and that creates a problem. Right, but if they don't have the right values, if their value is just profit, well then you can't really fault them for achieving what they're wanting to. Okay, because think about that. If your value is to make a profit, okay, if that's the value, well then there could be different things that you'd be doing in order to achieve the goal. Okay, not all of it might be in the best interest of other people. Okay, which is problematic. Versus, let's talk about maybe instead of profit, maybe your goal is, as you said, maybe taking photos, so capturing memories. Okay, so do you agree, if we're focusing on capturing the best memories in time, or best moments in time, okay, are we going to be profitable? Well, probably. Okay, because remember, your mission is something more than just rands and cents. Okay, you're actually wanting to capture the best moments in time, and it doesn't matter how much costs or how much it's going to cost you to do, but you're going to achieve that. You're on a mission. Okay, your mission is you're going to take the best photos in this world. Okay, and that's the mission. Right, we're going to do what we're going to do what it takes to get the best moment in time. Okay, if it costs us a lot, it's going to cost us a lot. We're not worried about the profit. We're just worried about capturing the best moment. Okay, because that's more than just profit. Okay, it's actually capturing the best moments. And the funny thing is, if you're the photographer capturing the best moments, you're probably going to achieve this profitability. Okay, because the best people win. Okay, Floyd Mayweather won on Saturday, well, early Sunday morning, because he's the best. Okay, he's not. Yes, he obviously got paid a lot. Okay, to fight, and obviously he won a lot from the actual fight, having won. But that probably wasn't his only motivation. Okay, his only motivation was probably to be the greatest boxer of all time. Okay, 50-0. Okay, no one else can really say that in terms of. I think he surpassed someone. I forget who. There was some boxer that also had 49-0, and he obviously surpassed that on Sunday. But that's probably. I mean, I don't know the guy. Okay, but I'm just trying to. How can I say? Use examples to express what the mission and values are. Okay, obviously, if the mission was profit, it might have been a little bit different. Okay, in terms of the mission rather being the goal. Okay, because think about it. If you were a boxer, if you really wanted to win the fight, you could probably try injure your opponent, like maybe like bite your opponent, or I don't know, kick your opponent where you know you shouldn't, or punch them in an area that you're not supposed to, and things like that. So obviously that's not allowed. It's against the rules. But if you are focusing just on winning the fight, well then maybe you're going to do certain things in order to achieve certain goals. Okay, versus following the rules and then let your skills, okay, speak for themselves, basically. Okay, that's basically what Floyd Mayweather did on Sunday. He outskilled the guy. Okay, his skills are just so much better. He's been in so many more fights. So his ability to let's say predict what's going to happen is a lot greater than the other guy. Okay, obviously the other guy comes from a different sport. Okay, so in that area he would be one of the best. Okay, but obviously when it comes to boxing, you've obviously got Floyd Mayweather being the best. Okay, being the most skilled. Okay, in that department. Right, so that's important. So the textbook here describes the mission statement as the core purpose of the organization. Okay, and see again, I want to relate this to you. Okay, so what is your mission statement? Let's create one then. If you don't have one, so come, Unam. I want to know as a photographer what's the mission statement. Can you think of one?
My core purpose, especially when I started, was to have obviously the best images, the best quality images. That was my biggest thing, the best quality images at an affordable price, because I wanted, when I started, I really wanted to cater for the lower end of the market, especially because the lower end of the market, they never really got the opportunity to get really high quality, beautiful images that could possibly be printed at a later stage. You'd always find that models or people, everyday people would have images, but they weren't of the best quality, as though they were being almost that they were going to be seen on a magazine or anything like that. So that was my main. That's why I really took on photographers, because I really want to provide beautiful quality images at an affordable price. That was the biggest thing.
Okay, great. So you're talking about this in the past tense. You say when I started, and when I first started. Now, so does that mean it's changed?
No. It hasn't changed. It's just that I think as time has gone past, I've gotten my not that my target market, but my client base or my clientele has moved from that to being a lot more high corporate end, brands. And as much as it's still the same high quality images that I'm trying to produce, but obviously at the same time, I think there has been a bigger factor of that I want to get paid just as much as the best photographer out there, because I produce just a good work. Because, as opposed to saying, well, I'll undercut my costs to make sure that I have the best product, because that's what I did at first. I would always make sure that I'd find myself, quite honestly, um, under pricing, just to make sure that I can develop a client base. Like I said, the lower end of the market, to secure that lower end of the market, and also to find that I can try develop customer loyalty with that. So now, like I said, as much as I don't have those clients as much as I did before, I have different clients that can afford to pay me, a lot more for the quality and the kind of photography that I'm doing. So yeah, it hasn't changed so much, but it's just that, like I'm saying, like the client base has changed. So
Yeah.
I don't go into, if I'm going to shoot for Adidas, I'm not going to say to them, well, oh yeah, your budget is 20,000 rand for this. Well, don't worry, I'll give it to you for 5, because that's what I used to do. If I was shooting for Anthony, I'd say to him, oh no, look, Ant, usually I'd charge 2,000 rand, but for you it's okay. Like, I'll just charge 1.5 is okay. Or what is your budget? You've got 500 rand. Let's see what we can do for 500 bucks. So that's why I'm saying a lot of things, why I'm speaking it in the past tense. It's just the changes in demographics that have happened.
Okay, yeah. So not all clients are the same. So obviously
Yeah.
you're catering for different markets. Sounds like you've got obviously clients in both areas. So more on the lower end and then also on the higher end as well.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. So obviously you had to develop the strategy, right? And the strategy would have come from this mission statement. Okay, so your underlying purpose is obviously to almost like sort of give back in a sense, where you're trying to create all these images for people that might not be able to necessarily maybe afford them, perhaps. Okay, that was what you initially went with. Okay, and then obviously things have changed now because you've developed your skill, and now obviously companies are willing to pay more for that product. Right, that was the first bit. The next bit is looking at values. What is a value? They talk about a principle here. So how would you define that?
Well, I'm very, very, very big on professionalism. So, arriving early, 30 minutes early to every shoot. I treat every customer and every client the same. So, you could be paying me, 20 bucks. You could be paying me 20,000 rand. It doesn't matter. Professionalism is very, very important. So, like I said, arriving early, being on time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Making sure that you provide everything on everybody that I provide a service to. They get their images on a memory stick. They get the opportunity to request printing. I can print your images for you. But those are the principles. So behavior plays a big part of it, and like I said in the beginning, creating a good customer experience. People looking back at me, at my service, and saying, "Wow, he was quite a delight to have."
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't mind paying for his services again.
Yeah, see, that's really good. So why do you have those values and principles? What would you say it stems from? Was it the way you were brought up? Because obviously different individuals have different views. So your view is it sounds really, really, really good and positive, but obviously not all people are the same. So where would you say your
Yeah.
values and principles have come from?
Well, they've come from mainly my upbringing,
Yes.
my parents, how they brought me up. Another large part of it is, I think, the school that I went to. I went to a boys' school, so I developed a lot of the yes sir, yes sir. Like, it's not pretentious. I don't think about, oh yes, I have to say it. Like, it's just something that was instilled in us from the time we arrived in grade 8 up
Okay.
until matric. And also the biggest thing that really made me want to keep it up was the fact that a lot of people, and this was also one of the bigger reasons, a minor reason, but one of the minor reasons why I went for a lower end of the market was because lower end of the market was, at the time, was not really tapped into, and the people whom had had requested photography skills or services from certain people whom were perhaps maybe even higher end photographers at some point, they would always talk of a bad experience. So, he arrives late. He doesn't, he treats us as though, or she treats us as though we are really paying him less than, another client or a higher end client. So that was like a big, that was my gap where I felt like this is where if I can be better than these guys, not just in terms of taking pictures, but also in creating an experience for my customers, then I could, like I said, create customer loyalty and from there generate more profits through that.
Yeah, see, that's good. See, because you're looking at what resonates with you as values and principles. Okay, because things like that can't change. Okay, so obviously you mentioned upbringing. That obviously affects the type of person that you are. Okay, so that's good. That's values. Then we've got the word vision. What does vision refer to? The future.
Yes.
Okay, so vision is basically the picture that you have in your mind's eye of what you think success is going to look like. Okay, so what would your vision be then for this career in photography? Like, how would you describe the future? Okay, but obviously based on today. But the vision is what we've got to, let's say, strive for. It's that sort of like that ambition. It's like having something more to like strive towards. So how would you describe that? What is the vision?
The vision is to, well, not just to get more high-end clients, but I would like to have more. I'd like to be a published photographer so on magazines, billboards, etc. So that's the main goal. Because I as much as I do shoot for higher end clients, but it's usually for like their websites. So social media is like a big core, it's a big part of what I do now. So social media images. Last week or the week before that, we were shooting Fashion Week, Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. I was shooting for a brand called Superbalist. I don't know if you know it. So, but then it was for their images on their social media platform.
Okay, and how did you get these opportunities then? Because obviously you had this vision, so this vision must have materialized in some way. So what were the steps taken? Can you identify that how can I say like the seed that created this vision?
It's quite hard, but I always attribute anything that I have to the people that like the images and they share, they repost, because I think in the industry that I am in, there are it's an industry filled with many competitors, so it's very easy, and it's not like print media. If you go into print media, you must be saying something very meaningful to want to print it.
Yeah.
For me, it's so quick. You could go online now and you probably don't spend more than 2 seconds looking at an image. So
yeah.
The people who like the pictures and the people who shared the images, and I think another big part was the people who were in those spaces giving me an opportunity. So, like I said, I was just shooting on a post. So that friend, whenever she has an opportunity, she would refer me, and I think a big part of it is referral. So people think, "Oh man, I like his work. Let me refer them, or let me choose him."
Yeah.
And then obviously the people who like my images, obviously that company saying, yes, we don't mind paying him because his images are beautiful and they are in line with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So yeah, obviously it sounds like your networking has also been a good part in terms of maybe your principles as well. So maybe being friendly to people, having referrals, etc. So that does also help as well. Okay, so that's the third one. Then we've got strategy here. Okay, so now describe your strategy. what would you say the strategy
Sorry.
is?
Sorry. I must describe it. I'm sorry. So let me hear you
What
this.
would you say how would you describe the strategy? What are you trying to do? What is the see, when they talk about strategy, they're talking about, it's almost like a how can I say, like almost like a checklist, if you will. Okay, strategy. So are we going to do this or are we going to do that? Okay, that's the strategy. We're either going to go in this direction or that direction. So maybe before you discuss yours, let me just show you the Mayweather versus McGregor. Masterly Floyd Mayweather gives bold.
We've been doing this for 21 years.
A boxing schooling. Okay, so this is the what website is this? Telegraph.co.uk, and in this particular video, they spoke about the post-match. Well, not post-match, but they spoke about the actual events of the match. Okay, so obviously Floyd has become one of the best boxers, or probably he still is. He always was very good, but he's definitely undisputed as being the 50th victory in terms of his unbeaten record, being the best. Okay, one of the best all-time greats of that particular sport. And obviously we're looking at the series of punches that he took in the early points. See, they even mentioned that he got off to a flying start, throwing a series of punches at the 40-year-old and scoring a few early points. Okay, that's how the match went. Right at the beginning, Floyd Mayweather had to withstand all of the punches, all of the attacks. Right, and obviously later on, he came back and he actually stamped his authority. See, here we go. Mayweather, meanwhile, struggled to stamp his authority on the contest, receiving blows to the head and failing to make an impact on the 29-year-old opponent. Okay, then things changed. Mayweather is known to be patient and started to find his groove in the 5th round. Pushing the Irishman back, Mayweather landed a number of blows to the body, and his pressure started to pay off in the 6th as the Irishman seemed to tire. Okay, so you can see he went into it with a strategy. He knew what he was going to do. So basically, if we had to like relate it to this, strategy could be, well, number one, withstand the early rounds. Okay, get through the attack. Okay, the initial massive attacks coming from the opponent. Then number two is maybe endure. Okay, have the endurance to save energy, to punch economically and so on. And then number three, when the opponent is tired, then go in for the kill. So that's strategy. Strategy is more, how can I say, it's almost more defined, if you will. Okay, it's defining the what are we going to do. So if we're going to go that route, okay, what is the first step? What is the second step? What is the third step? Okay, so I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to do the same thing for your photography business. So how would you describe the strategy?
Well, I'd have to start, well, speaking from past tense. I had to firstly establish myself as almost to say a household name. So I really had to shoot a lot more street style images. I had to shoot a lot of graduations, a lot of I remember baby showers. I had to shoot a lot of baby showers because the end of the end goal, like I've said, is to obviously see myself being a published photographer, so on magazines and so on. So to create, to establish myself as a household name, so to get the word out there that I am this guy. So I had to, like I said, shoot a lot of things that I didn't want to shoot. Nothing that compromised my moral values, however, but a lot of things that were not particularly exciting to me. But the one thing that I found joy in was obviously creating content and giving clients quality product for affordable prices.
Yeah.
And through that, that's how then I got referrals. But the how I got to where I am now was lots of shooting things that did not excite me particularly up until this point, and even
So,
yes.
Is there a strategy now? You're always referring to the past. So has the strategy changed?
No, I think it hasn't changed as much. So, but you see, like the difference is, you see, when you start out something, when you start, as a business, like for example with you have to advertise a lot more. You find yourself, you really have to be in people's faces so that people they know about your business. They know about what you offer and so on and so forth. Up until such a point, people find that people are comfortable with your skill and they say, oh wow, actually he's really good. And from there you find that you're not searching for as much business as much business searching for you. So and this was also an earlier conversation where, remember when you were saying to me, you don't post as much anymore. I remember I used to have to post about 2 or 3 times a day or 2-3 times a week, just to make sure that my name is out there and, I'm creating a buzz to make sure that at least I know that at the end of the month, I've got a couple of clients under my belt. Well, Friday, Saturday, but it's
Sorry, I'm losing your audio a bit there. Unama, are you still there? I lost your audio there.
I find that I don't have it. Because I was working at a rate that was just not conducive. As much as I was making money, but I found that the best thing that's worked now is that I do less work for so there are less clients that pay more, or I don't shoot. I used to shoot every single day, so I used to shoot every single day, even though I was studying. So I'd make sure on a Monday I had a shoot, Tuesday I had a shoot, Wednesday every single day, and perhaps maybe rest on a Sunday. Whereas now it's to try to accommodate my studies and to accommodate everything else. So I had to change the whole business model, the whole business plan, and the way that I operate to be able to accommodate the kind of life that I am trying to live now. So that's why a lot of things that when I speak of how I got to where I am, you find that I did a lot more to get where I am, but now I do a lot just to sustain,
I hear what you say. It obviously makes sense, because obviously all things come with time. So the strategy is key. You need to obviously have some sort of like to-do list. So obviously you mentioned in the past you had more on your to-do list than you do now. The list has changed quite a bit, but the strategy, yes, in terms of mission, values, and vision is still the same, but obviously the way that you're doing things now are a little bit different, and that's the key. So obviously strategy is very dependent on what are you trying to achieve.
Yes.
So there's 2 or 3 different strategies here. They talk about cost leadership, they talk about differentiation, and they talk about pricing. So where would you put your business? Are you looking at cost, meaning are you trying to give your clients the cheapest offer that has the most value, or are you looking at differentiation, meaning charging maybe a premium but they can't get a service anywhere else? Or are you going in terms of price strategy, so trying to maybe penetrate a specific market or trying to attract a certain client? So where would you put yourself here in terms of these 3 categories? Cost leadership, differentiation, or pricing? What is your strategy?
I think it's more of perhaps maybe a pricing strategy. Before there's definitely a cost leadership strategy, but I think now it's a lot more because there's very little, there's nothing different that I supply, anything amazingly different that I supply to my competitors. But the only major difference would perhaps be, cost. But I mean the pricing. But that it's still not like it's not a big enough a differentiation that a client would maybe pick someone else. But yeah, so I just think depending what I do, I employ a different pricing strategy. So I'm not gonna charge the same. I'm not gonna charge Anthony the same thing I charge, to shoot for EdCon or something. So I think that's sort of where I am now. The quality of work is still the same, however, but I think it's trying to get a good feel on what to price, when to price, the best value for money, and best value for what I.
Okay, so in terms of, so that's the current pricing strategy. You're going with that rather than cost leadership versus differentiation. Do you think is the best strategy? Is there such a thing?
I mean, for me, when I read this, I definitely felt like the cost leadership strategy was probably the best, because I mean, everybody wants to know that, especially as a client or a customer, you want to know that you're probably getting the best for less.
Yes.
So
so
that was one that I thought.
And maybe the reason why you're going with this one is because maybe of the recession, perhaps, so the economic environment.
Yes.
Okay, if we didn't have a recession, meaning if South Africa was in a better place, maybe the focus should maybe be on this. Okay, because now everyone's doing the same thing, we need to stand out. Perhaps.
Yes.
Okay. Alright, so that's cost leadership and differentiation, as well as pricing. The last bit over here is looking at strategic objectives. This is taking the strategy one step further. What is an objective?
What we're trying to achieve.
Yes, it's a more I would say an objective would be like it would be something that has to be done. It's like a task almost.
Yes.
Okay, goal. Okay, or deliverable. That might be even better. Okay, what are you going to deliver? What's the deliverable? Okay, that's what we're looking at there. Right, so strategy, yes, we need to have that in mind in terms of cost leadership, pricing, differentiation, but at the same time, we need to clearly define the objectives. And that's what they're looking at here. What are the strategic objectives? So, for example, in your case, if I'm thinking about photography, you might want to try secure a specific, let's say, client that might give you opportunities to open more doors. Okay, so maybe taking photos for someone's baby shower maybe opens more doors because it might there might be other opportunities in that environment. So that's more like a strategic objective. So what are we trying to achieve? Or maybe like you said, you're getting paid for certain fashion shoots. So you said you were at the Fashion Week taking photos. So maybe a strategic objective there could have been, well, if you're taking photos at the actual Fashion Week, maybe you could have taken photos of a specific designer, and who knows, maybe that designer would have taken you on as their like resident photographer or something like that. So meaning whenever they require specific photos being made or taken, then you'd be the one that would represent them. So see, that would be like a strategic objective, something that has like the next step. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're gonna shoot at Fashion Week. Why? Because we want to try find a designer that will be willing to take us on. So that could be something like strategic. So the objective achieves something more. Okay, I like the way they mentioned this progress. So in other words, the next step. Okay, so what step do we need to take now that's going to lead us to the next step? Okay, that's an objective, a strategic objective. Because remember, no one becomes the best photographer in the world by doing one job. Every photographer needs to do many jobs, and that eventually makes them the best.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so they talk about the SMART acronym. And this is quite interesting because SMART can be used in many areas, not only financial management or, in this case, management accounting, but it's looking at specific, okay, in what is to be achieved, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so what are they looking at here? They're looking at the objective. Remember, the objective is this, the progress. What is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to achieve today, okay, in terms of action? That's going to lead us to the next step. Okay, and the next step could be, I don't know, a specific client, a specific person, a specific opportunity, a specific product, specific whatever. Okay, fill in the blank. But it's something that needs to be done. That's going to lead you to the next step. Okay, that would be the objective. Okay, so we need to do something before we get to somewhere else. Then we need to do something else to get to somewhere else. And we keep doing those things, and eventually it's going to lead you to the place that you need to be. Okay, question, Una. So you're into photography. How much video do you do?
I don't do video at all. So,
okay, that's interesting. Because
but
you're a
to be quite
photographer,
honest,
so you have
I am
an
trying
eye for like the right scene, the right lighting, the right all of that. So why don't you move your business over to, or not move it over completely, but why don't you supplement? So in other words, strategic objective. Maybe the objective is to have the best photos. So once we've got the best photos, we can now create the best videos. I don't know. That could be something strategic. I don't know what the goal is ultimately, but that could be like a strategic objective.
Yes. No, but I am trying to get into it. It's just the equipment is a hell of a lot more expensive than photography equipment. It is something that I've been looking into for the past year.
Okay.
When I first wanted to do it, because I just didn't have a passion for it, but I've been thinking about it for the past year and just saying, well, I don't know, why don't I try it out? Another thing that also kind of, is that I've been struggling with is before I shoot, I know I already have an imagination of how the shoot will go or how the images will come out. When it comes to video, I just go so blank. I don't even know where to start. But I am thinking about it and I'm trying to get into it. It's just not as easy as photography.
Yeah. Okay, well that's interesting. Like I say, it's just something strategic. Strategic meaning the next step. Okay, so something that needs to be obtained or something that needs to be achieved, and then once it's achieved or obtained, then that leads you to the next step. That's what you're looking at here.
Yeah.
Okay, they've given you some examples there. I'm not going to look at that one. We're going to look at other examples rather. What I do want to discuss now is this: the roles and the conflicts and the influences that stakeholders have. Okay, in strategy. So obviously strategy is going to depend on what? People.
Yes.
Okay, and people are going to have certain roles. People could have conflict. People could influence. So when looking at this unit, you'll see they've defined a stakeholder. Earlier you spoke about them. Okay, obviously stakeholders are people like staff, shareholders, creditors, suppliers, customers, government. There's such a lot. Almost anyone is a stakeholder so long as they're affected by the business's actions or activities. Okay, so stake, just think about it as a stake. So you have something to lose. Okay, you have a stake in that particular business, or there's something that you're not going to get, or something that you'll lose or not gain by the events or the activities of a business. Okay, then they've looked at classification. I like the diagram they've given you here because they break it up quite well. Okay, they talk about primary and they talk about secondary. Who's more important?
In which sense?
Okay, when looking at importance, do you agree decision making is key, right? Okay, so
Yes.
when looking at primary stakeholders or secondary stakeholders, which are going to have the most impact on decision making?
I think primary.
Primary.
Yeah.
Yes. Why would primary have the biggest impact?
Because they are the I think they have more control over the decisions made by the business.
Okay, good. So
and
control,
I think secondary.
Yeah, that's good. Control could be something that you could mention, but it also looks at this information. Okay, who has more access to information, the primary or the secondary?
Oh, the primary.
The primary, definitely. And what they've said here is there's a contractual relationship. That means the primary stakeholders are actually they're literally. So, for example, if we're talking about an analogy, okay, a secondary stakeholder would be someone, let's say, sitting around the pool. A primary stakeholder would be someone actually swimming in the pool. Okay, so for example, if someone splashes in the pool and you're outside, you can still get wet, okay, but it's not really going to affect you, right? You're not going to drown.
Yeah.
Okay, but if something happens in the pool, all right, those stakeholders in the pool, they're going to drown. Okay, so primary are people that actually have something to lose because there's like an existing relationship. There's a contractual relationship. Secondary is when there's no contractual relationship, but there's like influence. There's like an effect. Something's going to happen. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, so the textbook's very good. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time looking at this. You can probably go through this yourself, but I'm just going to summarize. Okay, so when we talk about internal obviously means within the organization. Okay, so anyone within the organization is going to be viewed as internal. Okay, that's straightforward. Connected is a relationship. Okay, so if I relate this
perhaps
to...
maybe be... Okay.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I don't know. I was going to say connected. Could it be perhaps your creditors, perhaps? Because I haven't got into this. So maybe your creditors, subsidiary companies. I don't know.
Okay, almost.
Sure.
Yeah, connected would be like the suppliers, the people that are connected to the business. So, for example, if I talk about a family, internal would be you, okay, your mom, your dad, your brothers and sisters. Okay, connected stakeholders would be maybe the cousins or the aunts and uncles or the grandparents. Okay, so they're connected, but they're not internal. They're not like they're not part of that core, if that makes sense. Is that alright?
Yes, that's all right. So
okay. Right, then you've got a note here about external. Also, very easy. External just means outside. So, government, authorities, professional bodies, there's a lot of external stakeholders. External, anything outside the business. Okay, so if I had to show that, okay, you've got internal stakeholders, then you've got the connected stakeholders, and then on the outside of that you've got the external stakeholders. Right, so that's basically what you've got here. Okay, so you've got the core. Right, the core is key. Why? Why is the core important?
So is it? I think. How do I? I don't wanna talk about decision making again, but there is that. But then I think if sorry, can you hear me?
No, I didn't.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your line's not so great now for some reason. I'm not too sure. Maybe there might be more people on the connection where you are. and maybe that's slowing it
Yeah.
down slightly. But just try again.
Um, I was saying the core comes, like I was saying, I don't want to talk about decision making again, but if if everything is well within your business, it starts to, when all these other stakeholders to start to come in to the business, while your business is okay. So your staff, your managers are doing a great job. I think that sends it creates a great environment within your company or within your business. Everybody is productive. Suppliers are able to do business well with you,
Yeah.
and obviously then I'm just struggling to connect it to government and external. But then again, if you're looking at banks and stuff like that, if you're productive, you're having a good turnover. I think they're able to are better are in a better position to loan you money. And I think if everything is well within the business, then moving outside of the business, it's a bit of a smoother ride. You're able to have better connections with the other stakeholders.
Yes. Yeah, so it does depend on a lot of relationships. As you said, there could be different connections between parties. Because remember, you might have an internal stakeholder that might have someone external that they're relying on, or you might have a connected stakeholder that has connections internally, or maybe you have an external stakeholder who knows someone who's connected or something like that. There's a whole host of different scenarios, but the key is looking at their, how can I say, what's the best way of putting it? You said you don't want to use decision making, but that is probably the best way of looking at it. Okay, because do you agree, internal stakeholders, everything that the business does is going to be either agreed on by the internal stakeholders or not. And the connected or external stakeholders won't really know what the decision was unless they're informed.
Yes.
Okay, so internal has a lot more, let's say, hands-on approach. It's at a deeper level versus external, where external is more high level, right? Like government. Government is very high level, right? Government can't really say, well, this company, you are going to do this, this, and this, and this. Okay, government can implement policy, and people can follow the rules and the laws and all of that, but it still comes back to the company in terms of internal. Are they doing it? Are they implementing it, etc.? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so external is more higher level, okay, versus the internal, which is more hands-on, more like in the trenches almost. Okay. Right, then they give you a note about possible conflicts. A lot of conflicts can arise. The biggest one that all finance textbooks normally talk about is the agency problem. Okay, and the agency problem is basically a conflict of interest. Okay, that's the best way of describing it. Right, because remember, who makes the decisions? Generally internal. Okay, and internal would be the internal stakeholders. But who's affected? Well, connected stakeholders and external stakeholders. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so if I have someone making a decision, those decisions that individual is going to be making is going to have a spillover effect on all the other role players in this particular scenario. Okay, because you're looking at agency, someone acting on behalf. Okay, it even could be the shareholders perhaps. Okay, so managers making decisions that are going to affect the shareholders. Right, they talk about other things like laying off people. Okay, that's a conflict of interest. Right, it's a conflict. Do people want to be laid off?
No.
No, but it can happen. Right, people can be retrenched. Okay, there's a whole lot of, let's say, debate around what can happen in terms of conflict, health and safety. That could be a concern. Right, people could be complaining about their environment. Okay, are they happy or not to work in a specific environment? Maybe they need certain things in order to do their job. Those are things to consider that can create conflict. Conflict is just how can I say, a disagreement. Okay, people not seeing eye to eye. Okay, then the last bit here is looking at influence. Okay, what is influence? How would you describe that?
I would describe influence as being able to change people's minds, or to have to get people to have a different view of things.
Yes, that's perfect. That's a good way of looking at it. So influence is definitely that. It's being able to affect the decision making. That's the key. Okay. Influence means the ability to affect decision making. Okay, that's influence. Okay, they even talk about this. Degrees of power. Obviously, people with more power normally have more influence. Okay, it's not always the case, but in most scenarios, that's normally how it's viewed. Okay, and the reason for that is they can persuade people to make certain decisions. They can do certain things that can lead to certain outcomes. Okay, and as you've heard the saying, with power comes responsibility. Right, so obviously if you're in a position of power, you need to be responsible. Okay, if you abuse that power, then that becomes problematic, and that creates this. It creates conflict. Okay, so people that are in powerful positions need to manage that very carefully, because if they don't, then you have this arising, conflict. And no one wants conflict. Everyone wants, how can I say, peace, okay, or tranquility. You don't want to be fighting with everyone. Okay, you want to have, how can I say, freedom to do what you want to do, but at the same time, you don't want to have to fight for all your basic needs. Okay, so it's just something to consider when looking at this, the decision making, the influence. Okay. All right. Then there's a few activities there, and then we've got. I think that was the end of that chapter. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Right. Chapter 3 is a nice chapter because it's looking at this factors that influence. Okay. So we just spoke about this. Influence. What is influence? The ability to affect someone's decision making. Right. So here I'm looking at factors. Okay. So let's start off general. What do you think? Or let me ask you this, Unam. Do you influence anyone?
Yes.
Do you have influence over anything?
I don't believe so, but I think maybe the one thing that I've influenced people to do is, in my opinion, is maybe to take cleaner images, just without all the post production, post editing, That's the only thing that I feel, because when I started, that wasn't everybody was doing was adding filters. Everybody was adding the grain and all these, but I really loved clean, beautiful images, and I think that's where photography is headed to now as well. So okay, I think that's the only little bit of influence, I believe.
Okay, yeah, but I'm sure you have a lot more than what you're saying, because think about it. You're the photographer, right? So you have a client. Do you influence your client's decision?
Yes, there are certain times where it's what they want, what can work, or what. Yeah, I think that's. So I'd have to be able to influence their decision in the sense that, with my experience in that particular thing, to let them know that I don't think this will work as well as you might imagine, or as well as you might think, and maybe we should do it in a different way, or we'll do both and see which one works the best.
Okay, so how would you describe that factor? How would you describe that factor that influences the development of strategy? So is that going to affect strategy? Well, where would you put it? Would you put that as external, or would you put that as internal, what you're describing?
what I'm describing, would I put it as internal or external?
Yes.
I think I'd put it as internal.
Yes.
I don't know.
Why? It's more operational, right?
It's more. Sorry, sir.
It's more operational.
It's more operational. Yeah. Okay.
Operational meaning you have the experience, you've done it before, so you have an idea of how things would materialize. Okay, that's why you can make that recommendation. You can say, well, to your client, well, this is not going to work as well as this because of this reason and so on.
Yes.
Okay, so when looking at the overview of factors, have a look at all of these. Political, economic, social, technological, competitive environment, operating. Okay, we can maybe circle that one as well. Corporate culture, HR, industrial relations, organizational leadership. There's such a lot. These are all factors that influence strategy. How do you think strategy is going to be influenced by each of these? So let's choose one. Let's choose technology. How is technology going to affect strategy?
For example, technology, everything is online now. So technology has improved. So you don't have to write down notes, for example. You don't have to, you don't have to send letters to your clients or to your debtors. You send emails now. So I think it changes the way that you'd be doing things and the way you do business now. So
does it make it easier or more difficult?
I think it makes it a lot more easier, actually. Everything is more instantaneous than it was before.
Correct. Okay, so that's just one example of something that's going to influence strategy. Okay, technology influences strategy. For example, when things went digital, from analog to digital, okay, those companies that didn't adapt and change their strategy, do you think they're still surviving today?
No, not at all.
Why not?
I mean, they're unable to adapt with the changing climate and the changing ways. Foods as well. They were unable to adapt with everything being online shopping, and their influencers who influence possible customers and so on. So they were unable to adapt with the changing environment.
Yes.
They ended up going out of business.
Yes. Okay. So if we're going to look at one of these examples, okay, I'm going to take some examples that I found in terms of photography. Okay. So I just want to explain what happened here. In the chapter here, they've obviously taken each of these and they've expanded on them. So, for example, they talk about political. Okay, they talk about this as a factor that's going to influence strategy. Okay, then they talk about economic. So, recession versus, let's say, expansion. Obviously, if the economy is going through a recession, you're probably going to think twice before you're charging a premium for your product. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, see, those are just some examples. Then we've got social. Social is looking at the sustainability and ethics of things. Okay, so are we looking at the community's best interest? Are we looking at society as a whole? Right, then you've got technology, okay, which we just spoke about. Okay, we mentioned how technology, things are online. Okay, people buy things online. So or not hopefully, but maybe in the future, we might be able to buy more things online. Right now, certain things we can't really buy online. They need to be bought in person. Okay, but maybe in the future you can buy everything online. But if I'm focusing on technology, well, that's changing the way businesses do business. Okay, because think about it. How often do you still have to go to the shops? Not as often, because a lot of the things can be delivered straight to your door. Okay, with different companies. So technology has made certain businesses, let's say, worse off than they were before. Because now if those businesses don't adapt and change, think about the malls. Okay, we've got so many malls around the country. Okay, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future, how many people do you think are actually going to go to the shopping mall?
No, not at all. Very few, because I mean, even supermarkets, you're able to buy things online, and they'll deliver them to you now. So
yeah, so it's convenience as well. So technology is a way to, how can I say, change strategy. Because if you don't adapt, as you said, you're not going to succeed. Right, and then they talk about others.
Yes.
Competitive environment, that's the operating. Okay, some environments are very competitive. For example, boxing. Only one boxer can win. Right, that's something very competitive. So in terms of operating, we're looking at the way they react, the way that they act, and how are we going to deal with those factors. Right, so if we're looking at things from a business point of view, what's going to affect the business in terms of competition? Well, definitely our customers, our suppliers, our creditors, our labor. Okay, let's think about suppliers. How will a supplier affect competition? Well, if our supplier gives us preferential rates, are we going to be able to be more competitive?
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
you would. Okay, if our creditors give us better terms, are we going to be more competitive?
Yes, we'll have actually a lot more liquidity as well.
Correct. Your liquidity will improve as well. Good. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, then they talk about your position. Okay, so what position are you in? Right, what is the actual, let's say, level of quality of the product? You might be looking at your role as a role player. Okay, are you one of the big four businesses in your industry, or are you a startup? What sort of stage is the business at? Okay, then they talk about customer base. They talk about the suppliers, which we mentioned, and then there's a note here about the next bit. Okay, which is internal. Okay, so these are all the things we saw earlier. Remember that diagram that we saw?
Yes.
Okay, then we had corporate culture. Okay, corporate culture is the atmosphere. That's probably the best word I can use. Atmosphere. Okay, atmosphere is the environment. Okay, what sort of culture does that particular business have? Hey, who creates the culture?
I think the top management and managers.
Is it the top managers and management?
Which,
they can influence
I think,
culture.
But then, sir, wouldn't you say that they kind of make the culture, and the people that I suppose acted out are the employees or the staff of the. So for example, if I say that this is how things are done in my business, and this is the culture, we say, we say good morning in the business. We say good morning to all our customers. As if I'm top management and I say that this is how we do things within our business,
okay, but
and we give it
culture?
out. Yes.
No, that's rules and things that you must do.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
A rule isn't culture.
Okay.
You might have a culture where things are very restrictive. See, that's the culture. Okay, but
Yes.
the rule isn't the culture. So if the rule is you have to do X, Y, and Z, okay, because you have to do it, that creates a culture of, let's say, oversight, or a culture of like micromanaging, or a culture of like a dictatorship, if you will, okay, for a lack of a better word, okay, versus a culture that's more open and free in a way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
it does.
So rules don't create culture. Yes, you might have a culture of rules, but then that's different. Okay, so I wouldn't agree so much with. Well, let me say this. I would agree that the managers, the CEO, they're able to influence culture, but it's not up to them to create it. Okay, they can influence the employees. It's the employees' shared beliefs, shared values. They're the ones that actually create the culture. Yes, the CEO, the board of directors, all of them are going to try influence the culture of the business, but at the end of the day, it's the people that create it. Okay, so you can tell people to greet everyone all the time, okay, and they might just be doing it because they're pleasing the boss, okay, pleasing the CEO, but it might not be a culture of the business. Okay, versus a separate industry where everyone is just friendly, greeting, talking all of that. Okay, it's more the employees. Right, the employees are the ones that actually drive the culture of the business.
Yes.
Right, because you can have one CEO, okay, who wants to do things a certain way, and you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, okay, employees. Who do you think is going to win? Probably the employees. Because why? If they share the same beliefs and values, then this is going to become the culture.
Yes.
Okay, if the CEO can influence the shared beliefs, values, and so on, then that becomes the culture. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right, I'm trying to lead to the example. That's why I'm going through this a bit quicker, because a lot of this is just theory. You can just read this. I want to try apply it. Okay, so the last bit here is just talking about leadership, and they talk about HR. Is HR important?
Yes, sir, it is.
Why? Because they do this. They manage the employees. And we know employees are everything to businesses, because employees can either make or break the business. But if you don't look after your employees, okay, they're not going to be happy. They can go to the competitors, or if the employees are happy, they can take the company to the next level. Okay, so it all comes down to the people. Okay, people can either build the business to the next level, or they can destroy the business and take the business down. Right, so it all depends on what the employees are trying to achieve. Okay, so HR manages that. HR needs to have the policies in place. HR needs to have the checks and balances in place. HR needs to screen the employees. Okay, we can't just have anyone working at this company. Right, people need to meet certain requirements and so on. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, then we've got industrial relations. This is looking at labor relations. Best way to look at this would be unions. Okay, unions deal with the employment relationship, workplace relationships. This is looking at the employee and the employer and what sort of relationship they have. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it how can I say, more open or more closed? Is it yeah, I think that's probably the best way of viewing it. So open communication versus closed communication, right? Or hierarchy, right? Industrial relations. Do the managers and employees, do they work together, or are they working like in separate let's say areas? Okay, meaning is the business more team based, or is the business more individual? It all depends. It's looking at that relationship, the workplace relationships, right? Unions is definitely what we look at there. Okay, why are unions so important?
Because they look after the employees' needs. But I also know that I think unions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so they look after a union would be like a representative. Okay, because remember, think about a company. I mean, you get very, very big companies. Okay, massive companies. And individual is literally just that little number in the company.
Yes.
Okay, so what does one person, in terms of influence, have on a business, on a massive corporate? Nothing. Right, that's why unions create representation, so that employees' rights are being looked after. Because if companies had it their way, companies would act in a certain way, okay, to generate profit, but not always look after the employees. And that's something that unions try to fight for, is employee rights. Okay, trying to make the employee more of, or let's say more a part of the decision making. Got that?
Yes.
Okay. Right, and that covers that bit. Let's have a look at the example. So before I look at the processes, that's the last thing that we need to just discuss this week. I want to show you the examples here. So basically what I did is I was searching for this 15 inspiring photographers to follow on Instagram. Okay, obviously you're a photographer, so I want to see what your view is on these factors, okay, external or internal, influencing these photographers. Okay, so obviously these photographers are inspiring. Inspiring meaning they're actually influencing the work of other photographers.
Yes.
So this particular article was written in May 2017. We unearthed 15 creative photographers on Instagram that inspire your own efforts. Okay. The first is this photographer, Simone Bramanti. Okay. This is her page, or his page. Sorry, it's a he, not a she. Okay, so when looking at Simone Bramanti, they're looking at this. Storytelling first, that's the description there. Okay, would you describe that as the mission?
Yeah, possibly.
Yes. Okay, have a look at following. Wow, almost 1 million. Almost 1 million followers for this particular individual photographer. Right, and if we look at their work, okay, let's talk about factors that influence their work, internal and external. Right, so as a photographer, being an influencer, right, are your followers going to influence your work, or are you going to influence your work? What's the underlining like influence in terms of factors? What factors would influence the work of this individual?
Well, I think that you also put your own kind of work, whatever that interests you. But you also keep in mind that what your followers like seeing. So they didn't follow you, just because they follow like what they.
Okay, so they do like what they see. That's why you have a follower. Fine. But in terms of factors, so if we relate it back to this, the factors.
Yes.
Okay, we need to go back all the way to the list. Okay, the factors. What would you say the factors are?
I think it's more internal factors for him. Maybe, like you said with me, maybe more operational. He seems like he travels quite a lot, so perhaps maybe his economic factors are a lot more favorable for him. Not sure, perhaps maybe. Imagine also socialism. I don't think that would come in much, but yeah, I think economic, operational. I want to say a bit more political, a little not in the broader sense, but in the sense that where he comes from, he's able to practice what he does.
Stories, right? So I mean, have a look at some of these images.
Yes.
Like, don't you think these images could have been in a book?
Oh, yes.
Like to me, it looks like a story. Like someone is this house. Like when I look at that, it looks like this. There's a story there. Like someone wants to say something, or tell a story. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
Or
yes.
even
yes.
like this. Like have a look at that. Like port. There's like a city. There's like the rays of the sun. Or like have a look at this couple here. Okay, there's a guy in the water, the girl's out there watching onto and they're standing on a cliff. Here's another one. Okay, like 3 trees in the middle of nowhere, the moon's out. Here we have like a night scene. So it's quite different. But I mean, to me, these look like almost like paintings, if you will.
Yes, that's true.
But they're actually photos. Hey?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
look at that. Like, this looks like a painting, but it's actually a photo. Someone took the picture.
Excuse me.
Right,
yes.
So looking at this is one person's account looking at photography. Let's have a look at the next person. Number 2, Victoria Seema. Okay, this is her account. Right, this is her account. Have a look at the type of pictures she's posting. Have a look at her description here. I make art. She's making art. Have a look at her photos.
Wow.
Strange, right?
Yes, yes.
Very, very, very different to what we've got over here. Okay? But in terms of inspiration, still part of the top 15 list. Okay, 15 inspiring photographers to follow on Instagram. Okay, I'm not going to go through all 15. I'm just going to look at the first 3. Okay, have a look at this last one, number 3. Dirk Bakker. Here's his accounts. Okay, Amsterdam, travel, art, design, architecture. Right, also very, very different photographs. Have a look at this. Look at these photos. They're like different. It's like more sort of arty, like architecture and buildings and straight lines, and like looks very mechanical.
Yes.
Okay, and these are the type of photos he's taking. So now, if you look at those 3, okay, all very different styles of photography, but all of them are going to have factors that influence their strategy. Right, so how would you describe the factors? So let's talk more general. What factors would influence a photographer's strategy? Let's hear from you as a photographer.
Well, for me, the factors that influence my strategy besides what I want to take, because I mainly take portraits, things that would the factors that would influence are obviously light, time of day, equipment, big factor.
Technology,
but
definitely.
in the things that yes, technology.
What else?
I don't know. Location is also a big factor.
Definitely.
So
see, that affects your strategy.
Yes. Location and perhaps also even who I'm shooting. Like, so in the sense that I wouldn't shoot specific skin types, if I could say. I'll try maybe if I'm shooting a lighter or fair person, I'll try maybe if that is what I'm trying to get out of the image, I'll probably shoot them in a place filled with more light that will complement their fair skin. Perhaps maybe is it like a juxtaposition? Maybe if you put a fair skinned person in a darker place to get their skin to pop even more. So geographical, I don't know if it's in here. That also, it's a big influencing factor.
Yeah, remember, even just an overview of factors. Obviously, there could be others as well, as long as it's internal or external.
Yes. Yeah, so those are the main, and obviously outfit usually also, to play on the colors and so on and so forth, complementing colors and palettes. Those are the things that would influence how I shoot or the way I shoot.
Okay, so it sounds like you're talking a lot about internal, meaning things that you would do relating to external. Is there anything outside of the internal, let's say, category that would affect the actual photographer's strategy? So something completely outside.
Well, economical would be one of the bigger ones, because if the client, for example, if you want to have images on a rooftop, you kind of have to have the budget to be able to shoot images on a rooftop.
Correct.
And have them looking in a specific way. So that is probably the biggest external factor that I could say. So your budget going along with what you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
Or trying to do at the end of the day.
Okay, that's a nice way of describing something that would directly affect the photographer, and they are external. Okay, so let's just put a note here. External and internal factors affecting strategy. Okay, there's a lot. Okay, as long as you can just think of it as, how can I say, almost like environmental type things, or like factor. Well, okay, the best word is a factor. So a factor would be something that needs to be considered that's going to influence the outcome. Okay, like you said, obviously we can't shoot in certain locations if we don't have the budgets. Okay, and then we've got the last page:
or
strengths,
shooting at
weaknesses,
specific times
opportunities,
of the day.
threats. Sorry, what is that?
I was saying also shooting at specific times of the day. The best time to shoot is either early in the morning or late in the evening. So late in the afternoon, excuse me. So I think when you said that environmental as well, I think to make sure that there's filtered light and there's not harsh light in the day, midday.
Okay, see, those are all things that you would look at in terms of decision making. And remember, the strategy affects the decisions. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then the last one is just a note about process and approach. The biggest things to take away here is the SWOT analysis. Have you heard of SWOT before?
Yes. So the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Opportunities, threats. 100%. Great. Okay, that's used quite often, and it's used in management quite a bit. Here they've given you some theory, and they've also talked about Porter's 5 forces. Have you heard of that before?
I think I've heard of it, but I've never studied it before.
Okay, yeah. So Porter's 5 forces is looking at the competitiveness in a particular industry. Okay, so let's go to the slides and a textbook and just show you that. Okay, so strategic planning, we spoke about strategy and how to create it. We spoke about goals and outcomes previously. Okay, I think this is quite good because they talk about steps. And we're looking at planning. Right, earlier you defined strategy. What did you say strategy was? Just give it to us again.
I think I said the how to.
Yes.
Or the how we're going to...
It's not quite the how to, it's more than just that. It's what?
Oh man, don't remember what I said.
Okay, it's the
goals and...
Remember, the strategy is the approach.
Yes, the approach.
So when you talk about how to, the how to could be the detail. The strategy is the overall goal. So if the goal is to, let's say, tire your opponent out, okay, before fighting them at the end, if we're looking at boxing, that would be like the approach. The approach is to go the long term, okay, the long run, okay, rather than just trying to go all out in the first few rounds, okay. But strategic planning is focusing more on creating that like to-do list, or creating that approach, those principles, if you will. Okay, it's the ability to create a plan almost. Okay, so this is looking at the strategic planning. Okay, so strategic planning is looking at SWOT and Porter's. Okay, why do we need both? It's because it's information. Okay, both give information in order to make decisions, or both uncover knowledge/info to make decisions. Right, and that's important. So when they talk about the steps, they talk about situation. Okay, then they talk about the target, and then they talk about the path or the proposal. Right, so I want to relate this to something that you might do okay, as a photographer. Okay, so let's talk about strategic planning for a photographer. Okay, so number one is situation. Okay, so can you describe a situation in photography?
Wow.
Okay, let me talk about this. Time of day. That was a good example that you used. So you spoke about shooting
Yes.
early morning or shooting late afternoon. So the situation
Yeah.
could be, okay, it's midday. That's the situation. Okay, they talk
Yes,
about
yes.
this. Seeing it. Okay, so you've seen the situation. It's 12 p.m. Okay,
PM.
midday.
Yes.
Right, so if you know it's midday, okay, you need to now do a photo shoot. Okay, what's
Yes.
the target? Well, give me a portrait. So now we're shooting a portrait. Someone's a person.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the situation. It's midday. The target is you need to do a portrait. Okay, what is your proposal or path going to be?
As in, how will I execute it?
Yes. Because see, it's
Oh,
about
well.
seeing the problem. It's seeing the scenario,
Yeah.
thinking about it, and then drawing. Drawing could be like the conclusion. See, another way of looking at this could be your exam. Okay, in the exam, they're going to give you a question. Okay, that's seeing it. Okay, what are they testing? Thinking is going to be, well, what is the approach? Okay, or what is the how can I say, the constraints maybe. Okay, the constraints. What is given in the question? Okay, given. And then you need to design a workable method to achieve the goal. Right, so the situation, midday, 12 p.m. Target, you need to do a portrait. So what's your proposal path?
Well, I would use it's called a reflector disc. It's got a diffuser in the middle. So what I would do is I would have probably an assistant holding it over their face to cover the light to almost to shade them from the sun, and in that way I'd be able to take a portrait.
Okay, in midday, in the broad daylight.
Yes. It actually, what's even better about it is the fact that it uses that same harsh sunlight. It basically diffuses that same harsh sunlight, and it gives a more even tone kind of light situation.
Okay,
Midday,
so
I
would you
think.
say that's the right
Yes.
path? Is that going to achieve the
It's-
goal?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
The best
See, that's important.
workable
So,
solution.
a lot about strategic planning. Another way of looking at this is problem solving.
Yes.
That's another way of looking at it. Okay, you're thinking of a strategy and you're going to plan. Okay, so strategic planning could also be viewed as a way of problem solving. Okay, because things aren't always as we expect them. Okay, there are always problems that arise, and it's your ability to identify the situation. It's your ability to target and think about the situation in order to have the right action. Okay, to do the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alright, so that's the see, think, draw approach, and then they talk about SWOT. Okay, I'm glad you're familiar with its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. That's good. What I do want you to do as a bit of a like side exercise or activity. Okay, next week I want you to give me a short SWOT analysis. Okay, on your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as a photographer. Okay, so someone in that industry. Okay, you're obviously operating in that industry. What are some of the strengths? What are some of the weaknesses? What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the threats? Okay, they do give you an example in your textbook, which is fine, but again, it's relating to business and it's general. Okay, it's looking at things that aren't specific. Right, so for example, here they talk about strengths. You'll see all of them are very general. Okay, having people that are competent, having people with qualities, okay, and having the right behavior. Okay, having team spirit, having committed employees, having processes, etc., having resources. Right? It's very general. None of this is specific. I mean, this you could say for any business. Okay, same thing with weaknesses. The ones that they give you here are very generic. Okay, so for example, insufficient research, high employee turnover. See, they're very generic. I mean, this you could say for any business, right? All businesses would have these weaknesses. Okay, I want to be a little bit more specific. Okay, so I want you to take your own business or your own like career as a photographer, and I want you to do the analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, because if you can apply that to something that you're familiar with, then you don't have to study all of these points. Okay, then you're understanding why rather than just remembering lots of points. Okay, so what is a strength? How do I determine what a strength is? What is a strength? Why, what, when do I see my strengths? Okay, those are all things that you could look at. Okay, so when have you seen your strength? Okay, maybe you're strong in certain areas. Okay, maybe you're weak in certain areas. I don't know. Okay, but I want you to try that for yourself as a practice activity looking at this. Okay, opportunities also, the ones here are quite general. They talk about things like deregulation. Obviously, if government deregulates certain industries, that's going to create opportunities. Okay, obviously regulation isn't always good. Regulation is good in some instances, but also bad in others. Okay, it can hamper growth and creativity. Okay, if everything is being regulated. Right, then you've got threats, strikes, unrest, technology, etc. Right, so again, very generic. I want you to be a little bit more specific. So when you talk about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, I want you to apply to your situation. Okay, right, but we'll discuss that next week. We'll start with that. Just a bit of a recap. Moving on to the next section, you can give me your view on what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats are. Okay. Alright, then the last bit is the porters, and they talk about analysis. Okay, why is analysis under planning?
Well, I think you have to analyze the situation so that you're able to plan or plan how to plan.
Correct. So, do you agree that analysis creates what?
Creations.
Say that again? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Creates a platform solution.
A platform of what?
Platform solution.
Sorry, the audio's not so great. Unam, just say that again, or
I was saying the platform solutions.
Okay, I can't make out. Can you type it quick? Just type it in the chat. I lost the audio there. Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a break in the audio now. What are you talking about? A platform for what? Oh, solutions. Okay. Right, a platform for solutions. That's correct. It's actually more the information, because analysis means what? Collecting data.
Information.
Collecting information, yes. Okay, and analyzing it. Analyzing means number crunching, ratio analysis, etc. Okay, see, all of this you do later on when we look at the number crunching, okay, the actual workings, okay, calculations. Right, so if I'm looking at strategic planning, the planning involves analysis. It involves getting data, getting information. Once you've got data and information, you can then do this. You can analyze different situations. Okay, so you could look at situation A, or number 1, situation 2, situation 3. Right, and then those situations are going to have certain outcomes. Right, can we make decisions based on those outcomes?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Right, because now we know what the different situations are. Right, then they talk about strategic formulation. Okay, obviously you need to create the strategy, you need to implement it, you need to check that everything is working. Okay, so evaluation. Implement, evaluate, form. Okay, so so create, in other words. Create, execute/implement. Once you've implemented, you then need to test or evaluate to see is it working. Right, so I'm sure you probably do the same thing when you take photos, right? You test the lighting, you see what the different maybe environments are, maybe you choose the best place, then you execute, you implement, and then after you've implemented, then you need to check, well, did it work? Maybe it didn't, and then evaluate. Okay. Alright, so that covers that, and then we just have a Porter's 5 forces model here. Okay, Porter's is important, and the reason for that is Porter's is used quite a bit in identifying competition. Okay, things that affect your external parties. Okay, so what is going to affect external parties? Well, new entrants. Okay, so let me talk about photography. Is the threat of new entrants high or low?
It's quite high.
Why?
Everybody has.
Why is it high?
Well, it's quite high because I think more people are getting entry level cameras. They're gonna get to a point where it's gonna be cheaper to just get a camera for yourself that stays at home than to inquire for services of a photographer.
Okay, that's good.
So it's become accessible, and cameras are becoming not cheaper per se, but people don't see the need to buy these big, huge DSLR cameras. If they have a point and shoot or an entry level DSLR, they can do the same job. Then eliminates the need for professional photographer.
Okay, so definitely new entrants, high. Okay, anyone can take photos. Okay, obviously you need to be good to be a photographer, but I mean the entrance. Okay, remember, entrance is looking at people coming into the space. Okay, you can have lots of people coming in.
Yeah.
A lot of people can be bad, but there's still new entrants. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's looking at the competitors.
Yes.
Okay, so is it easy to get into that industry or not? Okay, obviously it's a lot easier now with technology as well. Because think about it, most really state-of-the-art cell phones have really good camera taking or picture taking abilities, photo taking abilities. Okay, the newer phones have like 15 megapixel cameras that can actually take really decent photos. So almost anyone can actually enter that market, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay, in terms of bargaining power of the buyers, who are the buyers? The customers, right?
Yeah, your customers, yes.
So how would you describe the bargaining power of your customer? Can they or do they have lots of leverage?
Not quite, but because I still shoot lower end, so lower end, usually the first thing I ask is what's your budget, so I can do for you as much as your budget will take you. And if maybe on site, I'll probably do more just because of the fact that you took the effort to have a budget. So yeah, so bargaining power of buyers, it's there because obviously I'm not going to turn down income, so it's just about the way I approach it is what do you have, and then I look at with what they have, what can I do for them, And then from there, I'll even go as far as to say, I'll do more for you just for the sake, just so that you have a complete product. Because at the end of the day, I put my name on it. So it's better when you have a complete product than something that's,
And also, would you agree that the customers that you're dealing with, it's quite subjective as well, because people are either going to love the picture or not, and it's a lot of emotion as well in some instances. So bargaining power could be quite difficult, or let's say problematic. Okay, because in photography, there could be maybe an emotional attachment to it, perhaps. Okay, I mean, think about taking photos for someone's wedding. How often do they get married? Well, once, right? I mean, they're only going to have one wedding day, right?
Yeah.
So now, in terms of bargaining power of the buyers, that's their only wedding day. So if we're looking at their ability to negotiate, it could be seen as quite high, because obviously many photographers would want to take those photographs of that particular wedding. Maybe.
Yes.
And also, depending on the buyer, who's the buyer? Is the buyer a celebrity, or is the buyer someone unknown? Does a celebrity have more bargaining power?
Depending on how you look at it, I'd say that they kind of do, in a way, because if I'm taking images for a celebrity, that opens doors to more possible clients as well.
Yeah, so
because they
imagine if you had to take photos for a big South African celebrity. Okay, so obviously currently there's quite a lot of news about Bonang and how she's launched a new app. And she's got a book and all of that out. So if you were approached to do photographs for Bonang, or let's say if you were asked to apply to be Bonang's photographer, obviously the bargaining power there in terms of the buyer being a celebrity is quite high from their view or from their side.
Yes, that's true.
Because they're going to want the best, and they're not going to want to maybe pay as much perhaps, or maybe they will be willing to pay, but there's lots and lots of competition for their business perhaps.
Yes.
Okay. What about bargaining power of suppliers? What would you say? Good or bad? High or low?
It varies, but I think it's more low than it is high, because in some cases, some people, they charge what they charge and they're not willing to compromise.
But are there a lot of producers? Not really, hey? I mean, you've got like big brands like Canon and Nikon and what are the other big brands? Canon, Nikon. What are the others? Big brands.
There's there's Fuji.
Okay.
There's Sony.
That's 3.
There's I just forget what they call. They're up to something. Optimus or something.
Okay,
I just don't know what they call. What else other than Nikon, Canon? Yeah, those are the main ones.
There's only really 4, right?
Yes.
So bargaining power of the suppliers, quite high then, if there's only 4 main producers. Obviously, we have the other smaller brands and the brands that aren't as popular. But if we're looking at like professional photography, the bargaining power of the suppliers is quite high, because professionals are going to want to use the best brands.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
So
I was looking at it from a point of view as a.
You could look at it as low. If you went with low, then what are you describing?
Well, I mean, when I was saying low in terms of a photographer, it's if you charge a specific price, there are quite a few photographers that only charge that price. So, and also with when you look at the photography industry right now, there, like we just mentioned, there's an influx of new entrants. So there are many photographers that are coming into the industry, supplying images at a lower cost, at a lower price. So someone might want Unam, and Unam might be a little too expensive. So they'll probably look for someone who's just as good as him, who probably charges a lot less. So it's very hard for you to always stick to your price. So pricing, I don't want to say strategy, but to your pricing format, because you don't want to forfeit the possibility of income. So sometimes it varies. Some people don't mind paying. People, they do mind paying. So
it's interesting, hey? Do you have a specific pricing model, or do you literally just going according to budget? So what is your budget, and then you do as much as possible, or do you have like a specific pricing? Well, this is the cost and this is the cost. Take it or leave it type of thing.
Well, at first I did have that.
Yeah.
But now what I do is with lower end, I just ask for budgets. Like how much do you have? And then sometimes they'll say, hey, I think it's a low, just increase it by so much, then we can work on that. But for corporate and bigger brands, it's by quotation. So there are just specific things that need to be paid for. It's like I need to cover my operating costs or my fixed costs before I can even attempt to do the work. So that's the difference between the two.
So you're talking about that as being a factor to consider. Okay, would you say there is a threat of substitutes then? Because what you're looking at in terms of pricing is obviously compared to what you could get elsewhere, right? So how would you describe the threat of substitutes?
Substitutes being them taking someone else as a
no, as in instead of taking a photo, taking a video, a substitute.
Yes.
Okay, because remember we're looking at a substitute for the product or service. So something that could replace it. Would you say there's a high level of threat of substitutes?
Yeah, well, there is actually, if you could say, because people are leaning towards, yes, they want images, but they want images and videos.
Yes.
In some cases, they want videos more than anything, and the images are just supporting. So they'll say, do you take videos? Yes or no? And sometimes you'll say no, or you'll say yes, but then they'll say, I want more video than the images.
Okay.
So they want less images, more video, because video tells, I suppose, a better story. It communicates better. People can watch it, can watch it with their families, and
So would you say the threat of substitutes are quite high then, or quite low, in the photography industry?
It's I want to say it varies, because there's some people who just want images. There's some people who just want video.
Yes.
In specific cases, like I said, very few cases where people want them both. And when they want them both, the chances are they want more video than they want images. Okay. So it varies per person. Some people, they have no care for video. Some people have no care for images. I have very little care for video. I have a bigger care for images. So I think it's very person specific or client specific. So I can't say that your images or photography is going out of fashion, and it's videos that are really, really peaking at the moment. So
so you could probably say there's actually no real substitute then for a photo, because a photo is a photo. What else are they going to do? Are they going to ask for a painting?
Which is easy.
Yeah, you can't really do that, right?
That's quite true. So
in terms of the threat of substitute, so there's no real substitute for a photo or a video. Okay, I mean, it's literally, do you want the picture? And you can't really, for example, you can't really substitute a photo for anything else. I mean, you can get an artist to paint a portrait, but that portrait's going to take several hours, maybe even days to do, to get it lifelike and perfect.
Yes.
Versus, let's just take a photo and then print it out and put it on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think you could motivate for either or. Okay, maybe you could vote. You could motivate as video. Video could maybe be a substitute for photos, and photos not really a substitute for video, but I definitely think video could be seen as a substitute for photographs. But then, as a photo, you can't really say, or as a video, there's no real substitute for a video. How are you gonna capture moments other than filming it? Maybe a podcast. Okay, so maybe a podcast could be a substitute, but that's not a real substitute though, because a podcast doesn't provide the same value as a video.
Yes.
So it's an interesting one. Okay, and then the last one is the middle there. Rivalry among existing competitors. Okay, so how would you say the rivalry is in the photography industry? Do you have rivals? Is it very
I think no, I don't know. I think one thing that we've, because I don't shoot alone. Most of the time I shoot with either assistants or other photographers. The one thing that I think we've all kind of agreed on is that rivalry hasn't taken us anywhere, because in the industry that we're in, most jobs, and this is just I think it's common in most industries, that most of the work goes to our white counterparts, because in advertising, the advertising industry, the big corporates or the big people that own advertising companies are more likely to go for their own kind. So familiarity, they know the guy from high school or something like that, or they know him from school or from varsity. So for us, the rivalry has not assisted us. So the more we work together and the more we refer each other for jobs and call each other for things, the better off we are. I remember when we first had that kind of meeting, we likened it to how Jewish people would probably go for or probably give a job to another Jewish person, or a Muslim person, or probably employ another Muslim person, because what they try to do is they try to have a circulation of the income circulating about 4 to 5 times within their own kind of group or own people before they take it outside. So there's not much.
That's a generalization there. So you can't always generalize that like that. You need to be careful when you do generalize like that, because it might be difficult to substantiate that based on, let's say, analysis. Because remember, we're looking at what here? The analysis. Porter's 5 forces. So it's something you could maybe consider as your view, okay? Believing this is something that is a reality. Because maybe you've got experience in the industry and you've seen it, or you've experienced it, and that's something that has affected your analysis. Okay, but the most important bit is the actual risk. Is the risk high or low? What would you say? Is there a high risk of rivalry?
Yes, there is. So yes, there is
a risk.
Yes. If I'm being I mean, it is a risk. Like I mentioned earlier, that most clients.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Want
okay, so even though you are supporting everyone else, so there's assistants and all of that other stuff, right? Is there still a rivalry or a risk of rivalry in that industry?
Yes, there is.
Okay, and would you say is that very high or very low in terms of being prevalent in the industry?
I think it's pretty high. If it is quite high. I mean, they would rather go for someone else, or if you don't.
Remember, rivalry is not about the choice of photographer. Do you agree? Rivalry is not about choosing the photographer. Rivalry is about the competition between the photographers.
Yes. There's lots of that. There's the only thing that differentiates is probably the style of photography.
Okay.
Otherwise, that's as far as it goes. So,
okay, so
like I said, I'm more.
You differentiate yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes,
that
we
will come
do
back to
a
what we
lot.
spoke about earlier, which was that differentiation part.
Yes.
Okay, where we had the pricing strategy versus differentiation strategy
I
versus
see.
cost leadership.
Yes.
Okay, see, everything comes
Yes.
back to the strategy.
Mm.
Okay, because do you agree, if your strategy is to be the best and the most well-respected photographer in the industry, do you agree you're not really going to focus too much on rivalry because you're going to want to be more collaborative if you want to be the best and
Yes.
most liked photographer?
Yes, sir.
Versus if you want to be the best and you're going to stomp on everybody to reach the top. Does that make sense?
Stop and nothing.
See, it
Yes,
comes
sir.
back to what we spoke about earlier. What's the strategy? What's the goal? What's the purpose?
Yes.
Okay, so from what I've heard from you, it sounds like you're more collaborative. So you're looking at helping people, they're helping you, you're helping them. A more collaborative setup where rivalry is not too much of a factor. Because remember, you're doing it for a different
Yes.
reason. You're not doing it to be the best photographer. You're doing it to give people that can't afford good pictures.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so see, it always comes back to what we spoke about right at the beginning, which was the strategy. Okay, is that alright?
Yes, that's all right.
Okay, so we've covered that. Barriers to exit, barriers to entry. This is the bargaining power, then the threat of substitutes. Then I think we've covered all of that. Yeah, we have. Awesome.